On this part, we are going to design the login view. So if I just go here to login, you are going to see that we have a simple view in here, which has the email address and password. And also it has this header, which says login to your account. For that, let us go to Visual Studio. In here, I'm going to first check if we have the action. And then if we have the action, we're going to check if we have the view. In the authentication controller, we see that we have just a single action. So let us create another one. This is going to be public action result and then login. And then in here, we're just going to return the view, which is going to be the login.c#html view. Now in here to create the view, you can either go to the Solution Explorer and create the view manually, or you can just right click in here, add a view, razor view empty, add, and this view will be named login.c#html, or just login and then click the add button. As always, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to set the view data. So view data and then title is equal to, and then this is going to be login to your account. And down here, we are going to add a div which has the class row. And then inside this div, we're going to have another div, which is going to have the class called md6, and then offset md3. What this means is that this div is going to get 6 columns in the middle, because we're going to have 3 empty columns on the left and then 3 on the right. Then inside here, we're going to have an h4 header. The title or the value is going to be login to your account. Now, if I go to the custom CSS file, and then I just go to the root and then CSS and then site.css and then search in here for form header, you can see that I have already created this custom class, which when you apply to a header is going to give the necessary column, the necessary padding, font size, and font weight. So let us go back to the login view. And then in here on the h4, just going to type class is going to be form header. Then after the h4, we are going to have another div. And this div, the same way, is going to have the class row. And then inside this div, we're going to have another one, which is now going to get md8, and then offset is going to be 2. Now, if the call md and the offset in here is set to the main row, the other one in here is set to the parent div, which is this one. So if this one is going to get like 6 columns, this is going to get 8 columns, but from 6 columns, because it's a nested div. Let me just close the div tag. Now here we are going to use another ASP.NET tag helper, and that is going to be the form tag helper. So for that, I'll just type in here form, and you can see that it's just a normal form, but then in here we assign or we set the ASP controller value. So ASP controller is going to be authentication, and the ASP action is going to be the login action. Now inside this form, we are going to have 2 divs, the first one for the email address and the second one for the password. So I'll just type in here div. This is the first one, and then the second one, so just copy paste the first one. Then in the div, is going to set a class that is going to be form group, and then MB3. The MB3 in here just adds a margin at the bottom, and the scale is going to be 3. Now here, let us first create a label. So a label, And this label is going to be for the email address. The name is going to be just email address. Then here we're going to have an input. And this input in here is going to have the type email. Is going to then have the class form control. And then the ID is going to be similar to the for, which is email address. And then we can optionally add a placeholder which says enter email. Then down here after the input, we are going to have the small tag. This tag will have an ID, let's say just email address, SM for small. It's going to also have multiple classes. The first one is going to be form text, then text muted. And the value or the text that the users will see will be we will never share your email with anyone else. Now let us complete the second div. And here now we are going to have a label. And this label is going to be for the password. Just type password. And then this is going to be an input of the type password. And then we're going to also add class form control. And the ID is going to be password. And you can also set a placeholder, which is going to be enter password. And then after the divs, we are going to have a button. And this button is going to have the type submit. And then it's going to have multiple classes. The first one being btn, and then btn outline success. And then empty margin top 2. And btn login, which is a custom class because we want this button to look similar to the login button. And the text is going to be login. Now let us remove the extra spaces, and then I'm just going to save the changes and run the project. Now in here, let us go to the login button. Click this button. We get the screen in here. You can see that the login down here is similar to the one up here because they both have the green outline. And then when you hover, they get the orange color. And then in here on the screen, you have the login to your account. You have the email address, the password, and then enter email and enter password. The only small problem that I see in here is that the email address is in bold, but password is not. So let us just go back to Visual Studio. And then in here, you can see that the div for password doesn't have these classes. I'll just add these classes. Going to save the changes and then hot reload. Go back to the browser. And then in here, you can see that both the email address and passwords are in bold. On the next part, you'll learn how to create the register form.